Hello, everyone. Today, let's try to talk a little about the United States, where politics sometimes seems even more thrilling than Hollywood movies. Every time America steps into a heated political season, the news comes rushing like episodes of a long-running series. And the newest episode is: a federal judge has blocked former President Donald Trump's plan to deploy the National Guard to the city of Portland, in a case considered a serious constitutional challenge. In the next few minutes, I'll analyze with you why this event is important and how it could affect the whole United States, even the world. Note: this video is only for analysis and reference and does not represent any political organization or media. Here's the story. Amid ongoing protests around federal facilities in Portland, the Trump administration argued that it was necessary to deploy the National Guard to protect security and restore order. However, on Sunday night, a federal judge in Oregon issued an emergency order, temporarily preventing the president from deploying the force. The judge argued that the administration had violated constitutional limits, since it could not prove Portland's situation was so serious that the military had to be used. To make it easier to picture, you can imagine this. A mayor wants to control the situation in his own city, but the central government decides to send in the army to help, even though the local authorities did not ask. It's like a neighbor barging into your house because they think you need help cleaning up, even though your place is just a little messy. That's exactly how the Oregon government feels right now.
In my view, this is a very noteworthy constitutional clash because it touches on two core issues: the president's authority to deploy domestic military forces and the state's right to autonomy within the U.S. federal system. On the political side, the Trump administration argued that Portland was out of control and that federal power was needed to restore order. But opponents claimed this was a politically symbolic move, meant to project an image of being tough on chaos, especially at a time when America was deeply divided. Judge Corinne Emmergut, who had been appointed by Trump himself, nevertheless ruled against the administration, showing that even within the U.S. judicial system, the rule of law still holds independent power. This sent a strong message: no one, not even the president, stands above the Constitution. On the legal constitutional side, the judge cited the 10th Amendment, emphasizing the state's right to manage their own internal security. In addition, the Pace Comitatus Act, enacted in 1878, limits the use of federal military forces in civilian affairs, unless there is a declaration of insurrection or a special act of Congress. According to the court, the Trump administration did not have sufficient legal grounds to federalize the Guard and send them into Portland. In other words, without clear evidence that the city was out of control, deploying the military was an overreach of authority. On the social side, for the people of Portland, known for being progressive and strongly supporting the right to protest, bringing in troops could escalate tensions rather than ease them. Experience from 2020 showed that every time federal forces intervened, images of clashes, tear gas, and violence spread across social media, further eroding trust between the government and the people.
International impact. The world is watching very closely because the U.S. has long been seen as a standard of democracy and the rule of law. If even in America, deploying the military domestically is viewed as a political move, then that sends a contradictory signal to other countries. Is democracy being used as a tool of power? In my view, this is not just an internal American story. You see, just one court decision in Portland, and observers in Europe and Asia are already debating it. The U.S. Department of Justice will appeal, and this battle could rise all the way to the Supreme Court, where every ruling can rewrite how America understands power and freedom. Looking back at history, the U.S. has faced similar situations. In 1957, President Eisenhower deployed troops to Arkansas to force the state to implement the decision to end racial segregation in schools. But at that time, the state government was defying the Supreme Court's ruling, so the deployment had a clear legal basis. The Portland case now is the opposite. The state did not ask for help, and the court ordered a halt, meaning the legality of this action is far weaker. On the international stage, America's allies in Europe are watching closely. They see this as a test of the health of the American rule of law. In Asia, especially in countries with a strong central government model, this event also raises the question, what is the proper boundary between national security and citizens' freedoms? As people often say, what happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. But American politics is the opposite. What happens in Washington never stays in Washington. It spreads across the world, in every headline, in every morning news bulletin.
In summary, the incident in Portland is not just a dispute about deploying a military force. It is a test for American democracy, for the relationship between the president, the states, and the judiciary. If the courts continue to hold this position, it will reinforce the message that the rule of law remains the final boundary of power. But if the ruling is overturned, America will enter an even fiercer debate about the limits of executive authority. So, what do you think about this event? As for me, I feel there are still many unpredictable things, especially since the Department of Justice has already announced it will appeal. What do you think? Leave a comment so we can continue discussing how many more episodes this American political drama will still have.